So my talk title this morning is The Thing Itself. And this is the first chapter of the Science of Mind textbook by Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder. And in January, we have a tradition where we go through the first 4 chapters of the textbook. It's a way to ground us in our teaching. And so today, it's the thing itself. Now, I know that phrase can seem a little bit jarring at first. Dr. Holmes, he's speaking about God, the creative intelligence of the universe, yet he deliberately avoids personal language because he doesn't want us to identify this as a male deity modeled after human personality. He's describing a universal principle, one that includes both life, male and female, visible and the invisible. Not a personality, not a temperament, not a preference, but an intelligence, real, reliable, impartial as gravity or electricity, and infinitely more expansive. Dr. Holmes, he opens his textbooks by saying, there is coming a day where science and religion will walk hand in hand, not in competition, but in harmony. A day when science no longer denies the invisible, nor religion to deny fear and reason. And I believe we're closer to that day more than ever. And one place that I see it bubbling up is with near-death experiences. When people have these experiences, they rarely talk about heaven and hell as described in traditional teachings. They describe consciousness, awareness, transitions, something closer to what the Tibetan traditions would call the bardo. Holmes said, revelation at its best never destroys reason, it fulfills it. Dr. Schultz, my teacher, he said that our teaching never insults your intelligence. And this is the same thing Christ said. Christ said, I haven't come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. And true religion does not oppose truth, it reveals it. Albert Einstein said, science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. And what we're really seeking is a unity of belief, an understanding of life that includes both the measurable and the mysterious, the visible and the invisible. And we want to have that understanding, one that we can believe in, one that we can understand, so we can put it to work in our lives for a better life, a better world. Holmes says it would dishonor this intelligence that we call God to imagine it creating a humanity that has challenges, but to leave it bound, to leave it drowning in fear and broken. We are not here to live in lack and limitation. We're here to thrive. We're here to be the best of ourselves. We're here to know ourselves as God knows us. Strong, dynamic, powerful, out in the world, making a difference. Holmes says, you can't count the grains of sand on a single beach. He says, the earth holds untold riches. The very air itself is vibrant with life. Why then, he asked, do we live in lack and limitation? Why does fear rule our lives? Abundance is the rule, not scarcity. Freedom is the design, not bondage. The divine plan is of freedom and more freedom. In Hindu scripture it says, the self is not bound by action. Freedom is its nature. Freedom is not something we earn. It's something we realize. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, spirit does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. There's an intelligence at work in our lives, precise, impartial, unfailing. And sometimes we see it most clearly, not in theory, but in life itself and how our lives unfold. I have a personal story I'm going to share with you. It started at last Saturday evening around 8:30. I found myself in the emergency room at Flagler Hospital. I had what they were to call a sleep event. I'm fine, but they've recommended some more testing, and I understand that. Though there's a part of me that thinks it wasn't a physical thing at all, it was a spiritual thing. And I'll share with you why I have that idea. Now, from my perspective, I just simply drifted off to sleep in front of the television. And I was having an amazing dream. I was dreaming of an old college professor, a history professor. He was bitter as car battery acid. He didn't like me at all. He was very tough, but I loved him because he could explain stuff. He was really good at explaining how things had happened. The Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, our revolution, the Depression. He could lay out the steps of how these things took place. And so I was back in the lecture hall with him, and it was as if he was talking 50 years from now. And he was talking about the circumstance we find ourselves in now. And he was laying out why we had gotten to this place. And he was about to start talking about how we got out of it, how we were going to move out of it. And just as he turned the page to start that part, Tom started shaking me awake. And I woke up and I could tell that he was really disturbed, because he said he had tried to wake me up before. He said my eyes were wide open, but I hadn't responded. So I got up, I came fully to, I was back to myself. I got on AI to explain my situations. AI came back and said, "You better get yourself to the emergency room." I would have wanted to talk against it, but I knew I had no choice. I could have either talked Tom out of it or AI, but I couldn't go up against both of them. So off to the emergency room, we went at 8:30. And I was convinced that we were going to find a whole hospital full of coughing and hacking and sick people. Amazingly, I got there and it was empty. It was empty. They got me right back to the room. And the people that I had to check on me were perfect. They were right out of Hollywood. The nurse I had was a wisecracking, world-weary, heart of gold type. She reminded me of Flo from Alice, if you remember her. I almost ordered a patty melt from her. The doctor was young. I have socks older than he was. But he couldn't have been nicer. He couldn't have been kinder. He was just great. Now, while we were there, a disturbance broke out in the next room. A woman they had brought in, she had expressed to the police ideas of self-harm, and so they had brought her to the hospital. And she wanted out of there. And I could hear everything going on, particularly with my ear pressed against the wall. I was sick, I still have to be nosy. You know. And what I was hearing was amazing, because it was the nurse and the doctor. And they were in there, and they responded with kindness and compassion and reassurance. But she was hopeful she could talk her way out of there. That's what she wanted. And that couldn't happen. You know, she had set legal things into motion. And so at first they dealt with her very kindly, with clarity. And then when that didn't work, they stepped up and they were just more matter of fact, businesslike. This is what's got to happen. And if you want to get out of here quick, then this is what you've got to do. There was not anger from them. There was no judgment. Now, here's the thing that I thought was most miraculous. They left her room to come right back into my room, and when they showed back up with me, they were back to their wonderful selves. They were back to their wisecracking and friendly selves. They had not allowed that energy to attach to them. They had not. They were back to their kind and loving self. That was intelligence moving through them for a greater good. That's what Dr. Holmes is describing in the thing itself. Not a personality trying to be good, but a principle working through life to bring about the best possibilities through you and through me in our lives at this time. Not holding on to resentments, just responding to what the moment calls for and how we can bring about a greater answer. Dr. Holmes, he had a very curious thing he said about prayer. He said the answer to the prayer is in the prayer, because prayer does not change God's mind. It opens our eyes. It changes our minds. It opens our eyes to the good around us. When we shift from scanning life for what's wrong to recognizing what's good, what's working, what's present, and our thinking is renewed, we go from victims to possibilities. We go from lack and limitation to abundance. We go from being handicapped to moving out in the world and saying, I can make a difference. I'm not here to be just a potted plant. I'm here to be a conduit. I'm here to be the way Spirit is working in my life. In the Christian creation story, God says, let there be light. And then it declares, this is good. When we learn to see what is good, to recognize it, to praise it, to give gratitude for it, it expands. Our eyes open. It can be the wisecracking nurse, the compassionate doctor, the moment of grace where we move beyond fear and limitation. Christ said, I have come to life that you might have it more abundantly. But we can't experience abundant life if we're constantly searching for that which makes us angry and resentful or afraid. In the Buddhist text, they say, mind precedes all things. And what mind has created, mind can change. Now, as one thinks, one becomes. Our thinking creates this mold. Universal mind accepts the mold. It accepts it's whether it's good or bad for us. It has no opinion. It accepts what we give it, and then it sets in motion according to law. We don't create these laws, we discover them. Just like electricity existed before we understood it. Spiritual laws operated long before we named them. And ignorance of the law binds us. Awareness of it liberates us. Holmes says we're afraid of the universe. We're suspicious of one another, uncertain of our worth, but as intelligence increases, our capacity to cooperate with life grows. We are here to be happy. We're here to be well. We're here to be prosperous. We are here to know ourselves as God knows us, not as weak and wounded, but strong, dynamic, bold, making a difference in the world. Now, I know for a lot of us, hearing about freedom and abundance and trust and the intelligence of life can feel difficulty, especially when we see the world around us. It's no news to anybody. We're living in troubled times. There's division, there's anger, there's fear out there. And it would be naive to speak of good when news confronts us daily with suffering. But here's the truth. This isn't the first time our nation has stood at a breaking point. We've been here before, and we've survived. There are many times in our histories where our cities burned, when families were torn apart, when the future looked uncertain. Yet again and again, we found our way through. It always seemed in the worst of the time, the best leaders stood up and charted a new way. At the end of our Civil War, over 700,000 people had died to rid ourselves of the scourge of slavery. And Abraham Lincoln, he didn't call for revenge, he called for a healing. He said, with malice towards none and charity towards all, let us bind up the wounds of our nation. This wasn't weakness. It wasn't, it was masculinity at its best. It was spiritual courage. Decades later, when we went through another profound time of hatred and violence, Dr. King, he still dared. He said there's going to come a day when white children and black children will climb the Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia, a place so identified with hatred and bigotry. And he said they will join hands and sing out, and they won't have any fear of danger. If they could see these possibilities in front of us in their times when had been so much disruption, how can we not choose to lift our eyes up when we're going through what we're going through? And here's the thing. Change doesn't begin out there. We can't wait for politicians to fix it. We can't wait for our institutions to fix it. We can't even wait for an old professor to give us a clue. We cannot even wait on Spirit itself to come down from a distant place and make it right. The work begins within us. The work begins now. Holmes says this: ignorance of the law binds us, but awareness liberates us. And the law is this: when we consistently hold in consciousness, reflects in our lives. When we hold fear, it multiplies. When we have judgment, it deepens division. But if we hold compassion and understanding and clarity, then something new will emerge. This doesn't mean that we have to deny pain. It doesn't mean we have to excuse harm. It means we refuse to let bitterness be the guiding force of our lives. And when we're ready to release judgment, we will see a better day. Now, I can understand it's not easy to be going through these times and to try to see things from a higher vibration. But that's what Christ did on the cross. He turned it over to God. He cried out, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they have done." That wasn't a denial. That was the release of his own anger. They had nailed him to wood. He had a right to be angry. But he knew he could not ascend to Christhood holding that on. So he gave it over to Spirit. And that was the release of that toxin, and it gave him the opening to ascend. Now, I want to be honest with you. I don't stand up and say I've mastered all of this. I have my moments just like any of us. We're only human doing the best we can. But this morning and every day, Spirit is inviting us to know something better, to do something better, to be something better. Because hatred binds us, judgment weighs us down, and resentment blocks the flow of life itself. This morning, Spirit is inviting us to do something brave, to loosen our grip on condemnation, to lift our eyes from fear, to imagine for a moment, that's all Spirit needs is a moment, a greater possibility. A world where we don't think we have to all look alike, but that we remember that we all belong to one life. A world where differences don't require division. A world where compassion is stronger than outrage. And this is not a fantasy. This is aligning with the thing itself, the intelligence that has always been working towards a greater life, a greater freedom, a greater good. When we align with it, and our thoughts and prayers and our daily behavior, we become instruments of that intelligence which is moving through us, which is calling forth in us a greater life, a bolder day, a brighter day of sisterhood and brotherhood, where we all can live together in one nation, one possibility, one love. It's what Spirit is calling you to do. And this morning is the time for us to step up and step out and join hands together and to bring in a bold new possibility of love and compassion and kindness. It's in every one of us to do, and we're up to the task. It's the truth in your life this morning. It's the truth in mine, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you.